So the next thing I want to talk about, and it's pretty important in the way that I use Roam, is a tool called Readwise. So Readwise is actually a separate company from Roam, but it's very closely integrated. So the way that I think about Readwise is basically anything that I'm reading on my Kindle, anything that I am reading in Instapaper, and anything that I am seeing on Twitter are the most important kind of ways that I ingest information. So we'll walk through each of these. But first, maybe a quick introduction to Readwise. So Readwise is a tool that basically is trying to pull together all the different things that you're reading, bring them into one place, and allow you to, it's almost a middleware for all of your content, as well as a space repetition system to be able to help you remember a lot of the things that you read. So you can see that there's a bunch of different types of connections here that you can build with Readwise to be able to import. So for me, I have it connected to my Kindle. I have it connected to Instapaper. We'll also talk about physical books and then to Twitter. So let me come back here and talk about physical books as well. So these are the things I have Readwise connected to, and then you can see that you can export connections in Readwise to a bunch of different places. I have mine connected to Roam. And so the first thing is if you're reading in Kindle, so I have my Kindle here, and so this is called The Death of Expertise. So as I'm reading through, as I make highlights, automatically my highlights and even my, let's see if I have an example of a note. My highlights or even my notes, when I make these notes, they're automatically getting connected through Readwise, so they get pulled into Readwise, and then you can see how they're getting pulled into Roam. So here I have the Death of Expertise highlights as a page. You can see on March 13th, there's a few highlights pulled in. Here are those highlights. So if you look back at, here's this one, started political beliefs among lay people. There's that highlight, and then you can also see my comment here. So I want to connect this to Righteous Mind. So that's a note for myself. So over time, as I read a book, it will start to pull in all of the highlights across that book and the specific notes that I've made. When I finish a book, I'll go in and I'll clean this process up. So I might, you can see of the books that I have read, here's one that I've mentioned before, where you can basically see these were all the highlights that got pulled in through Readwise. And then what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll read them, I'll clean them all up, I'll move them all into this note section, I'll kind of take out some of those timestamps and dates and things, go through and bold things and connect things and stuff like that. And then as I'm reading it, I'll start to notice high-level ideas, and so I'll come up here into my key takeaways, and so I might pull in different high-level ideas that are interesting in how to build a city. How this is relevant. So as I'm reading that, I might, have something where, if I felt like this was actually super relevant to my, I have this book that I've read. But what I could even do is I could, embed a block where maybe I want to pull in, and maybe not all of these are super relevant to my live like Disney stock research, but maybe open source knowledge is really important. And so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to embed that specific block here so that I can be able to open it up and things like that. So that is one way as I'm reading through a book. There's also in Readwise you can do physical books. So basically when you have the Readwise mobile app, you can actually take pictures of, so you have a physical book out and you have the Readwise mobile app. You can take a picture in the Readwise app and then it will OCR the page that you're pointing at. You can readjust the highlight down to the section you want to snag as a highlight, and then you can pull it in that way. So that's another way to do it. Instapaper I don't use as often, but so if you look in Readwise, whenever you read a Instapaper article, pulling up here, so you've got maybe this article about Snowflake. You've made a couple of highlights here. And so if I look, I think I still have this in here. Here you go. So that is a page created by Instapaper. So if you come in here, it does the exact same thing, right? So it's pulling the author, the link to the article that I read, any tags about it, and then highlights here, right? And maybe I added these, but here are my 2 highlights that I made. So as you read an Instapaper, you can make those highlights and do the same thing, and then Readwise will pull it in, and then it'll pull into this page, and that's fine. I don't love having a whole standalone page just for all the articles that I read. Some of the articles that I read, I sort of rip out pieces, and so that's why in a previous video I talked about Eloquent, and so that's when I would use Eloquent. But if there is an article that I really like, or if I want to read on my phone and be able to still have it go to Roam, then I'll read on Instapaper's mobile app. I'll read an article, and then as I make highlights, it might pull in here. And I might come and delete this page and just turn it into a page on my daily note. But at least that way I can read from a mobile perspective. So that's Instapaper. And then Twitter, I mean, honestly, this is the most powerful thing. So I feel like, a good solid chunk of my investment interests and research and stuff, it starts with just trying to follow people on Twitter and seeing what they're sharing. And so when you look at, when you find something on Twitter that you like, you can actually just DM it to Readwise. If you have it, again, if you have it connected to your Twitter account, then if you look at, you connect it to Readwise, you really literally just DM it to the Readwise account. And you can basically see all of these different things that I've DM'd, and then I'll save it with thread, which saves the text of the tweet, and then hashtag whatever is interesting and why that's interesting. So you can see all these different ideas that I'm here saving tweets from. And then if you come in here, you can start to see, like, this is, so pulled in the tweet, and then it tagged it with my Shopify page. So if I look at Shopify, so here's my company page. It's got all my information saved. And then if I pull open these references, you can see that it's referencing that page. And there's a bunch of things that I probably would want to go through as I build my Shopify investment memo. I'll want to go through here, read, and then maybe, those would end up, I pull this in here. I might come in here. This is an article that I want to read. I might pull that open. I do, Eloquent or whatever. I would kind of ingest this article, and then it would probably end up as an article right here in my resources page. So by being able to save things from Twitter directly, it lets me, figure out all these different ways of building kind of feeds. And you can see that's one of the most common things in my daily notes, where it's saving all these different tweets over time. So that is the best way to collect ideas across Twitter. So that is how I use Readwise.